Marcus Wheeler sat on the cold sidewalk of downtown Seattle, his back against the brick wall of a coffee shop. The cardboard sign in front of him read Veteran. Anything helps. People walked past him every day, hundreds of them, but most acted like he wasn't there. Some days, Marcus felt like he truly was invisible. It hadn't always been this way. 3 years ago, Marcus had a job, an apartment, and plans for his future. But after coming home from his second tour in Afghanistan, things fell apart. The nightmares kept him awake at night, the loud noises made him jump, and the jobs he found never lasted long. One by one, he lost everything. First his job, then his apartment, and finally, his connection to the world. Now home was wherever he could find shelter from the rain and wind. Sometimes it was under a bridge, other times in a doorway, or if he was lucky, in a shelter when there was space. Today was Tuesday, and the morning air had a sharp chill. Winter was coming soon, and Marcus worried about the cold nights ahead. His thin jacket and sleeping bag wouldn't be enough when the temperatures dropped below freezing. He pulled his worn military cap lower over his eyes and watched the morning crowd hurry to work. Business people walked by with coffee cups in hand, looking at their phones. Students with backpacks rushed to class. No one looked at Marcus. No one except the occasional security guard who might tell him to move along. Just another day, Marcus thought to himself as he sipped the cold coffee someone had given him yesterday. His stomach growled, reminding him that he hadn't eaten since the half sandwich from the church outreach program yesterday afternoon. The morning went on like most others. A few coins tossed in his cup. A woman who looked away when their eyes met. A man who crossed the street to avoid walking past him. As the day warmed up, Marcus counted his money. $3.42. Not enough for a hot meal, but maybe enough for some food from the dollar store down the street. He was about to pack up his few belongings when a shadow fell across his sign. "Excuse me," a soft voice said. Marcus looked up to see a woman standing there. She was dressed in a nice business suit, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. She wasn't moving on like the others. She was actually looking at him. "Yes, ma'am?" Marcus said, his voice rough from lack of use. "Were you really in the military?" she asked, pointing to his sign. "Yes, ma'am. Army, 2 tours in Afghanistan." The woman seemed to make a decision right then. She knelt down to his level, not caring about her clean pants on the dirty sidewalk. "My name is Elaine," she said, holding out her hand. Marcus hesitated, then shook it. "Marcus Wheeler." "It's nice to meet you, Marcus," Elaine said. "When was the last time you had a proper meal?" "Been a while," Marcus admitted. Elaine opened her purse and took out a brown paper package about the size of a book. She handed it to Marcus. "This isn't charity," she said firmly. "It's an opportunity if you want it." Before Marcus could ask what she meant, Elaine stood up. "I have to go now, but please, open that when you're alone. It might help." Then she was gone, joining the stream of people on the sidewalk. Marcus looked down at the package in his hands. It was surprisingly heavy for its size. For the first time in months, something different had happened. Someone had seen him. Someone had stopped. And now he held a mystery in his hands. Marcus carefully put the package in his backpack. Whatever it was, he wouldn't open it here on the busy street. He would wait until night, when he was alone in his usual sleeping spot. For now, it was time to move. The coffee shop owner would be out soon to tell them to leave. But as Marcus gathered his few belongings, he felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. It felt strangely like hope. That night, Marcus found a quiet spot behind the public library. It was one of his safer sleeping places, hidden from the street by large bushes, but still close enough to the building to catch some warmth from the air vents. He spread his tattered sleeping bag on a piece of cardboard and sat down, tired from walking all day. The brown paper package from Elaine felt heavy in his backpack. All day, Marcus had wondered what could be inside. Part of him worried it might be some kind of trick. He had seen other homeless people get pranked by teenagers who thought it was funny to give fake gifts. But something about Elaine seemed different, genuine. With careful hands, Marcus took out the package and placed it on his lap. The brown paper was smooth and neatly taped. He couldn't remember the last time someone had given him something wrapped like a real gift. Only one way to find out, he whispered to himself as he began to tear the paper. Inside was a small box. Marcus opened it slowly, his heart beating faster. What he saw made him gasp. There, nestled in the box, was a brand new smartphone, its screen shiny and black. Next to it was a small envelope. Marcus picked up the phone first, turning it over in his rough hands. It was already charged and ready to use. Who gives a homeless man a smartphone? Marcus wondered out loud. This was no cheap phone either. It looked expensive. He opened the envelope next and found two things inside, a handwritten note and 5 crisp $20 bills. Marcus stared at the money in disbelief. $100. That was more cash than he had held in years. His hands shook slightly as he unfolded the note and read. Marcus, this phone is paid for 1 year. My number is programmed in the contacts. Call me tomorrow at 9 a.m. The money is to help you get cleaned up and have a good meal. This isn't charity. It's a step forward if you choose to take it. Elaine. There was also an address written at the bottom of the note, for a place downtown. Marcus sat back against the library wall, trying to understand what was happening. Why would a stranger do this? What did she want from him? In his years on the street, he had learned that nothing came without a price. But something about Elaine's words stuck with him. This isn't charity. It's a step forward if you choose to take it. She was giving him a choice, not just a handout. Marcus looked at the phone again. With this, he could call for help if he got sick. He could look for jobs online. He could even try to find his sister, who he hadn't spoken to in years. The money meant he could get a hot shower at the day center, buy some clean clothes from the thrift store, and eat real food instead of digging through garbage cans. But what did Elaine want? Why would she help a stranger like this? Marcus stayed awake long into the night, looking at the stars through the branches above him. For 3 years, he had lived day to day, focusing only on surviving until tomorrow. Now, suddenly, someone was offering him a chance at something more. As the night grew colder, Marcus carefully put the phone and money back in the box. He wrapped it in his only clean t-shirt and tucked it deep in his backpack, which he used as a pillow. Sleep didn't come easily. His mind kept going back to Elaine's face, how she had looked him in the eyes when others looked away, how she had knelt down to his level instead of standing above him. By morning, Marcus had made his decision. Whatever this opportunity was, he would take it. He would call Elaine at 9 a.m. For the first time in years, Marcus woke up with a plan for the day. He had somewhere to be, something to do. As the first light of dawn broke through the trees, he packed up his few belongings with new purpose. Today might be different. Today might be the day his life began to change. The morning sun found Marcus standing outside a small diner near downtown. He had woken up early, packed his few belongings, and walked to the day center when it opened at 7 a.m. There, he had taken his first hot shower in weeks. The center also had a clothing donation area, where Marcus found a clean button-up shirt and pants that almost fit. They were a bit loose, but much better than his dirty clothes. With some of Elaine's money, he bought a cheap razor and shaved his thick beard. The face that looked back at him in the mirror was thinner than he remembered, with new lines around his eyes, but he recognized himself again. For the first time in months, he looked like the Marcus from before, the Marcus who had once had a future. Now, at 8:45 a.m., he stood nervously outside the diner, the phone in his hand. He had 15 minutes until he was supposed to call Elaine. His stomach growled loudly, reminding him that it had been almost a day since his last meal. The smell of bacon and coffee from the diner made his mouth water. Might as well eat while I wait, Marcus thought, pushing open the door. Inside, the warm air wrapped around him like a blanket. The waitress, an older woman with kind eyes, showed him to a small table by the window. Marcus ordered coffee, eggs, and toast, a simple meal, the one he hadn't enjoyed in a long time. As he ate, he watched the clock on the wall. At exactly 9:00 a.m., he pulled out the phone and found Elaine's number in the contacts. His finger hovered over the call button for a moment before he took a deep breath and pressed it. The phone rang 3 times before Elaine answered. "Hello, Marcus," she said, her voice clear through the speaker. "I'm glad you called." "Thank you for the phone," Marcus said quietly. "And the money. I don't know why you're helping me, but I appreciate it." "Are you at the address I gave you?" Elaine asked. "Not yet. I'm at a diner nearby. Thought I should eat something first." "Good thinking. When you're done, come to the building. It's the blue one with the glass doors. Ask for Robert at the front desk. He's expecting you." "Who's Robert?" Marcus asked, feeling uneasy. What is this place? Robert is my brother-in-law, Elaine explained. He owns a property management company, and he might have a job for you. Marcus nearly dropped his coffee cup. A job? For me? Yes, Elaine said simply. It's nothing fancy. Maintenance work mostly, but it's a start. Why? Marcus asked the question that had kept him up all night. Why are you doing this for me? There was a pause on the other end of the line. Let's just say I know what it's like to need a chance, Elaine finally said. Someone gave me one once. Now I'm passing it on. The rest is up to you. After they hung up, Marcus finished his breakfast slowly, trying to calm his nerves. A job. It had been so long since anyone had even considered hiring him. What if he couldn't do it? What if he failed? But then he thought about his alternatives. Another cold winter on the streets. More hungry nights. More days of being invisible. 20 minutes later, Marcus stood in front of the blue building Elaine had described. It was nice but not fancy, about 5 stories tall with large windows. Taking another deep breath, he pushed through the glass doors into a small lobby. A security guard sat behind a desk, watching Marcus carefully as he approached. Can I help you? The guard asked, his voice neutral but his eyes suspicious. My name is Marcus Wheeler, he said, standing up straight like he used to do in the army. I'm here to see Robert. Elaine sent me. The guard's expression changed immediately. He picked up a phone and dialed a number. Sir, there's a Marcus Wheeler here to see you. Yes, sir, says Elaine sent him. The guard listened for a moment, then nodded. Yes, sir, I'll send him right up. He hung up and looked at Marcus with new respect. 5th floor, end of the hall. Mr. Turner is waiting for you. As Marcus stepped into the elevator, his heart pounded in his chest. He didn't know what waited for him on the 5th floor, but for the first time in years, he was moving forward instead of just surviving in place. The doors closed, and the elevator began to rise. The elevator doors opened with a soft ding. Marcus stepped out onto the 5th floor, his palms sweating. The hallway was quiet, with a dark blue carpet and white walls. Several doors lined the corridor, each with a small sign next to it. Marcus walked slowly to the end of the hall where he found a door marked Robert Turner, Property Management. He stood outside for a moment, gathering his courage. It had been years since his last job interview. Back then, he had worn a proper suit and carried a resume. Now, all he had were borrowed clothes and a story full of gaps. Marcus knocked on the door. Come in, called a deep voice from inside. Taking a deep breath, Marcus turned the handle and entered a modest office. Behind a desk sat a man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair and glasses. He looked up as Marcus entered and stood to greet him. You must be Marcus, the man said, extending his hand. I'm Robert Turner. Marcus shook his hand, trying not to show how nervous he felt. Robert's handshake was firm and confident. Please, have a seat, Robert said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. Marcus sat down, back straight, just like he'd been taught in the military. He noticed how Robert looked at him, not with pity or disgust, but with calm assessment. So, Robert began, leaning back in his chair. Elaine told me about you. Said she met you yesterday and thought you might be a good fit for a position I have open. Yes, sir, Marcus said, though I'm not sure why she picked me out of all the people she could have helped. Robert smiled slightly. My sister-in-law has good instincts about people. Always has. If she thinks you have potential, I trust her judgment. He pulled a folder from his desk drawer. Tell me about your work experience, Marcus. Marcus swallowed hard. Before I was on the streets, I worked construction for about a year after leaving the army. Before that, I was a maintenance specialist during my service. 8 years total, 2 tours in Afghanistan. What kind of maintenance work did you do in the army? Robert asked, making notes. Everything from basic repairs to electrical work, plumbing, security systems. When something broke down in the field, we had to fix it with whatever we had. Robert nodded. And what happened after construction? This was the hard part. Marcus looked down at his hands. I started having problems. Nightmares. Couldn't sleep. Some days I couldn't even leave my apartment. Lost my job, then my apartment. Been on the streets about 3 years now. He expected to see disappointment on Robert's face. When he looked up, The man was still watching him with the same steady gaze. Are you getting any help for those issues? Robert asked. Was seeing someone at the VA for a while. Haven't been back in a long time, though. Robert made another note. Here's what I have, Marcus. I manage 12 apartment buildings across the city. I need someone who can handle basic maintenance calls, check security systems, and help with minor repairs. The job comes with a small studio apartment in one of the buildings. Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. A job and a place to live. It's not charity, Robert continued, as if reading his mind. The apartment is part of your pay. The work can be demanding, and you'll be on call some evenings and weekends. Think you can handle that? Yes, sir, Marcus said quickly. I can handle it. Robert studied him for a long moment. There's one more thing. If you take this job, you need to restart your treatment at the VA. That's non-negotiable. I need you stable and reliable. Marcus hadn't expected that. The thought of facing his problems was almost scarier than living on the streets. But the chance for a real job, a real home? I understand, he said finally. I'll go back to the VA. Robert nodded and stood up. Good. Let's go see the apartment. If it works for you, you can start tomorrow. As they walked back to the elevator, Marcus felt like he was in a dream. Just yesterday, he had been invisible on the street. Today, someone was offering him his life back. In the elevator, Robert handed him a small key. This is your first step, he said. What you do with it is up to you. The apartment building was on a quiet street about 20 minutes from downtown. It wasn't fancy, just a simple 4-story brick building with a small parking lot. Robert parked his car and led Marcus through the front entrance. This is Parkview Apartments, Robert explained as they walked through a clean but simple lobby. 42 units total, mostly working people, teachers, nurses, office workers. Good, quiet tenants. They took the stairs to the second floor. Marcus followed Robert down a hallway with faded blue carpet until they stopped at apartment 208. This would be yours, Robert said, unlocking the door. It's the smallest unit in the building, but it's just been renovated. Marcus stepped inside and froze. After 3 years of sleeping in doorways, under bridges, and in crowded shelters, the small studio apartment looked like a palace. Clean white walls, a kitchenette with a mini fridge and 2-burner stove, a bathroom with a real shower, and by the window, a single bed with a clean mattress. It's not much, Robert said, watching Marcus's reaction, but it's private and clean. Marcus walked slowly around the space, afraid to touch anything. It was maybe 300 square feet total, but to him, it felt enormous. There's a maintenance room in the basement where we keep tools and supplies, Robert continued. Part of your job would be checking the building systems daily, heating, plumbing, security doors. You'd also respond to tenant maintenance requests. Marcus nodded, still taking it all in. What about furniture? Bed comes with the place. There's a thrift store down the street for basics. I can advance you some of your first paycheck if you need essentials. Marcus turned to face Robert. I don't understand why you're doing this. You don't know me. I could steal from you. I could mess up. Robert leaned against the doorframe. You could, but Elaine thinks you won't. And frankly, I need someone who can live on site. My last maintenance guy left without notice 3 weeks ago. He pulled a paper from his pocket and handed it to Marcus. Here's the job offer. $15 an hour, 30 hours a week guaranteed. More if we have special projects, apartment included. Health insurance after 90 days. Marcus stared at the paper. It had been so long since he'd held a real job offer. There's one more thing, Robert said. I need to see proof that you've made an appointment at the VA within the next week. I meant what I said about that being non-negotiable. Marcus nodded. I'll call them today. Good. The job and apartment are yours if you want them. You can move in tomorrow. Move in. Words sounded strange to Marcus. He had nothing to move except his backpack with a few clothes and his sleeping bag. I don't have much, he admitted. Robert seemed to understand. Start with the basics. A change of clothes, toiletries, food. Build from there. Marcus looked out the window at the quiet street below. This could be his home, his chance to start over. But fear gripped him suddenly. What if I can't do it? He asked quietly. What if the nightmares come back? What if I let you down? Robert's expression softened slightly. That's why the VA requirement is important. You need support. This isn't just about work, Marcus. It's about rebuilding your life. He handed Marcus the key. Try it for a month. If it doesn't work out, no hard feelings. Marcus closed his fingers around the small key. Such a tiny thing, but it meant everything: safety, dignity, a future. Thank you, he said simply. I won't let you down. Robert checked his watch. I need to get back to the office. Take your time here, look around. Front door locks automatically. Come by the office tomorrow at 9, and we'll handle the paperwork. After Robert left, Marcus stood alone in the quiet apartment. He walked to the window and looked out at the street, at people going about their normal lives. Tomorrow, he whispered to himself, I'll be one of them again. For the first time in years, Marcus allowed himself to hope that maybe, just maybe, his life could be different. Marcus woke up with a start, his heart racing. For a moment, he didn't know where he was. The soft bed beneath him felt strange after years of sleeping on concrete. Then he remembered. This was his apartment now, his home. It had been 5 days since he moved in. 5 days of adjusting to walls and a roof, to privacy, to the luxury of running water whenever he wanted it. The small studio still felt too big sometimes, too quiet. At night, he often found himself sitting on the floor in the corner rather than on the bed, a habit from his years on the street when corners meant safety. With the advance Robert had given him, Marcus had bought some basic necessities: toiletries, a few clothes from the thrift store, some dishes and food. His apartment was still nearly empty, but it was his. The job was going better than he expected. Years in the army had taught Marcus to follow routines, and he quickly settled into his new responsibilities. Each morning, he checked the building's heating system and security doors. Throughout the day, he responded to maintenance requests from tenants: a leaking faucet in 312, a broken light fixture in 105, a stuck window in 221. Most tenants were friendly enough, though some looked at him with suspicion when he first arrived at their doors. Marcus understood. He was still thin, his clothes still hung loose on his frame, and his eyes still carried the haunted look of someone who had seen too much. Today was Friday, and Marcus was checking the building's fire alarms when his phone rang. It was the new phone Elaine had given him, now loaded with contacts: Robert, the building's emergency line, and yesterday he had finally called his sister in Ohio to let her know he was okay. Hello, Marcus answered, still not used to having his own phone. Marcus, it's Robert. How's everything going? Good, sir. Just testing the fire alarms on the 3rd floor. Any problems so far? No, sir. Fixed Mrs. Peterson's sink yesterday and changed the light bulbs in the hallways. Good, Robert said. Listen, there's a problem at the Riverside building. Broken pipe in the basement. Think you can handle it? Marcus hesitated. He hadn't left his building since moving in, comfortable in his new routine and still nervous about the outside world. I can try, he said finally. Good man. Address is 1422 Riverside Drive. Take the bus if you need to. Tools should be in their maintenance room. Call me if you need help. After hanging up, Marcus stood in the hallway, anxiety building in his chest. Going to another building meant dealing with new people, a new environment. What if he panicked? What if he couldn't fix the problem? He took a deep breath, remembering what his VA counselor had told him at his appointment yesterday. One step at a time. You don't have to be perfect. Marcus grabbed his jacket and work ID badge. Outside, the November air was crisp. He walked to the bus stop, trying to ignore the tightness in his chest. The bus came within minutes. As he boarded, the driver nodded at his maintenance uniform. Riverside Drive? Marcus asked, his voice steadier than he felt. 3rd stop, the driver replied. 20 minutes later, Marcus stood outside the Riverside building, a 6-story apartment complex near the water. He took another deep breath and went inside. The basement was flooded with an inch of water when Marcus found it. A pipe had burst near the water heater, spraying water across the room. Working methodically, Marcus found the main valve and shut off the water. Then he assessed the damage: a simple crack in the pipe, something he could fix. For the next hour, Marcus worked in the cool basement, cutting and replacing the damaged section of pipe. The work calmed him, gave him focus. This was something he knew how to do, something he was good at. When he finally turned the water back on, The repair held. No leaks. The job was done. As Marcus packed up his tools, a strange feeling came over him. Pride. He had faced his fear of leaving his safe space. He had solved a problem. He had been useful. On the bus ride back to his building, Marcus looked out the window at the city streets. 5 days ago, he had been sleeping on those streets. Now he was riding past them, heading home after a day's work. One step at a time, he whispered to himself, and for the first time in years, he believed it might be possible. 1 month had passed since Marcus started his new life. December arrived with cold winds and holiday decorations throughout the city. The apartment buildings Marcus maintained were now adorned with strings of colorful lights and wreaths on many doors. Marcus's own apartment had slowly transformed too. A small second-hand table and chair now sat by the window. A bookshelf held a few paperbacks he'd found at the library sale. A warm blanket, a gift from his sister who had called him every Sunday since he'd contacted her, lay folded on his bed. The space was becoming a home. His body was changing as well. Regular meals had filled out his gaunt face. His hands, once shaky, were now steady and strong from daily work. The dark circles under his eyes had faded, though he still had nightmares some nights. Every Thursday, Marcus went to his VA counseling sessions. At first, he had gone only because it was part of his agreement with Robert. But now he found himself looking forward to the hours spent talking through his experiences, learning tools to manage his anxiety, connecting with other veterans who understood what he had been through. On this particular morning, Marcus was repairing a broken toilet in apartment 317 when his phone rang. He wiped his hands and checked the caller ID. It was Elaine. "Hello," he answered, stepping out into the hallway. "Marcus, it's Elaine. How are you doing?" "I'm good," he replied, and realized he actually meant it. "Working on some plumbing right now." "Robert tells me you're doing excellent work," Elaine said, her voice warm. "I was wondering if you'd be free for coffee tomorrow. There's something I'd like to talk to you about." Marcus felt a flash of worry. What did she want to discuss? Was there a problem? "Sure," he said finally. "I'm free in the afternoon." "Great. Let's meet at the corner cafe at 2 p.m. Do you know it?" "Yes, it's near the office." It was also where Marcus had eaten breakfast the day of his interview, though he didn't mention that. "Perfect. See you then." The next day, Marcus arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early. He wore his best clothes, a dark blue button-up shirt and khaki pants he had bought with his first real paycheck. His hair was neatly trimmed, cut by a barber just last week. He chose a table by the window, the same one he'd sat at that life-changing morning. The same waitress was working. She smiled in recognition as she brought him a menu. "Nice to see you again," she said. "You're looking well?" Marcus nodded, surprised she remembered him. "Thank you." At exactly 2 p.m., Elaine walked through the door. She spotted him and smiled, making her way to his table. Today she wore a red sweater and dark pants, her hair loose around her shoulders. "Marcus," she said warmly, sitting across from him. "It's so good to see you." "You too," he replied. I never properly thanked you for what you did, for giving me a chance." Elaine waved away his thanks. "You did all the hard work. I just opened a door." They ordered coffee, and for a few minutes, they talked about his job, his apartment, his progress at the VA. Marcus found it surprisingly easy to talk to Elaine. She listened without judgment, her eyes kind and attentive. Finally, Elaine set down her cup. "I asked you here because I have a question for you." "Here it comes," Marcus thought nervously. "Robert and I host a small dinner at our home every Christmas Eve," she continued. "Nothing fancy, just family and a few friends. We'd like you to join us." Marcus stared at her, caught off guard. "Me? At your Christmas dinner?" Elaine nodded. "Yes, we'd love to have you there." "But why?" Marcus asked, genuinely confused. "I'm just your brother-in-law's employee." Elaine looked at him thoughtfully. "Marcus, do you know why I stopped to talk to you that day?" He shook his head. "My father was a Vietnam veteran," she said quietly. "He struggled when he came home. No one understood what he was going through. Eventually, he ended up on the streets. I was 12 when he left. By the time I was old enough to look for him, it was too late." Marcus felt a tightness in his throat. "I'm sorry." "When I saw you sitting there, I thought about my dad. I wondered if someone had shown him kindness, offered him help, maybe things would have been different. She reached across the table and touched his hand briefly. You're not just an employee, Marcus. You're a reminder that people can find their way back. So, will you come to dinner? Marcus looked at this woman who had changed his life with one small act of kindness. Yes, he said softly. I'd be honored. As they finished their coffee, Marcus realized something important. He wasn't just getting his life back, he was building a new one, with new connections, new possibilities. And for the first time in years, he was looking forward to Christmas. 6 months had passed since that cold November day when Elaine had handed Marcus the package that changed his life. Spring had turned to summer, and the city was warm and bright. Marcus stood at the bus stop, checking his watch. It was Saturday morning, and he had somewhere important to be. The bus arrived right on time. Marcus climbed aboard, nodding to the driver who now recognized him as a regular passenger. He took a seat near the window, his small backpack on his lap. Inside it was a carefully wrapped package, similar to the one Elaine had given him half a year ago. So much had changed since then. Marcus now supervised maintenance for 3 of Robert's buildings. His studio apartment, once nearly empty, was now a proper home with furniture, books, and even a small television. The nightmares still came sometimes, but less often. His VA support group had become an important part of his life, a place where he could talk freely with others who understood his experiences. The Christmas dinner at Elaine and Robert's house had been the first of many gatherings. He had met their children, their friends, and slowly, Marcus had begun to feel part of something again, a community. Last month, his sister had visited from Ohio, staying for a week in his apartment, marveling at how far he had come. The bus stopped downtown, and Marcus got off. He walked several blocks until he reached the corner where his old life had ended and his new one had begun. The same coffee shop was there, the same brick wall where he had once sat with his cardboard sign. Marcus didn't stop here often. The memories were still difficult. But today was different. Today he had a purpose. He scanned the area until he found what he was looking for. A man sat against the wall about half a block down. He wore an old army jacket despite the warm weather, a small sign propped against his knees. Veteran. Anything helps. Marcus approached slowly. The man looked up, his eyes wary, his beard gray and unkempt. There was a wariness in his posture that Marcus recognized all too well. Morning, Marcus said, stopping a respectful distance away. The man nodded but said nothing. Army? Marcus asked, gesturing to the jacket. Marines, the man replied, his voice rough. 2 tours in Iraq. Marcus nodded. Army myself. Afghanistan. Understanding passed between them, the silent recognition of shared experience. You doing okay? Marcus asked. Need anything? The man shrugged. I'm fine. His eyes said otherwise. Marcus crouched down to the man's level, just as Elaine had done with him. My name's Marcus Wheeler. Tom, the man said after a moment. Tom Bridges. Listen, Tom, I was sitting right where you are now about 6 months ago. Someone stopped and gave me a chance. Changed my life. Tom looked at him skeptically. Marcus didn't blame him. He wouldn't have believed it either. I work as a maintenance supervisor now, Marcus continued. Have my own place. Getting help at the VA. Good for you, Tom said, looking away. Marcus reached into his backpack and pulled out the wrapped package. This isn't charity, he said, echoing Elaine's words. It's an opportunity if you want it. He placed the package next to Tom. Inside was a prepaid phone, $100 in cash, and a note with Marcus's number and information about job openings at one of Robert's buildings. Tom stared at the package. Why? Because someone did it for me, Marcus said simply, and made me promise to pass it on when I could. He stood up. There's no pressure. My number's in there if you want to talk. The money is yours either way. Tom looked up at him, confusion and a tiny spark of hope in his tired eyes. Thank you, he said quietly. Marcus nodded. Just remember, if things work out for you, find someone else who needs a chance. That's all I ask. As Marcus walked away, he pulled out his phone and called a familiar number. Elaine? It's Marcus. I just did it. Passed on your gift. Her voice was warm through the phone. How did it feel? Marcus looked back at Tom, who was carefully opening the package. Like coming full circle. like finally understanding why you stopped that day. And will you do it again? She asked. Marcus smiled as he walked toward the bus stop. Yes, as many times as I can. The gift Elaine had given him wasn't just the phone, or the money, or even the job. It was the chance to believe in himself again, to reconnect with the world, to remember what it felt like to be seen. And now, by passing that gift on to someone else, the circle was complete. But it wasn't ending, it was expanding, reaching out to include one more person who needed to be seen, one more life that could change with just a small act of kindness. As Marcus boarded the bus heading home, he knew this was just the beginning.